Welcome to the Take the North podcast. I'm David Hoff on the Mully and Haugh Show on 670 The Score. Dan Wiederer is from the Chicago Tribune out at Haugh Hall. We're talking to you days before the Bears go for their second straight victory out in Los Angeles against the Chargers. Dan, this has been a week focused a lot on Tyson Bagent. There's a lot of other things going on. What was it like at Haugh Hall? How would you describe the Bears as they prepare to do something they've never done under Matt Eberflus, and that's win 2 games in a row?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a focus here and an understanding that they have a chance here to go on the road against a quality opponent in prime time and inject some relevance back into their season. If they win this game, David, as you mentioned, the first stretch of consecutive victories in the Matt Eberflus era would take them, to 3-5 with a chance to go on the road next week to New Orleans and get to 4-5. And we all know we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. The conversation in a lot of ways has gotten ahead of itself this week in terms of the quarterback topic, but you have a football team here that understands it's got a winnable game if it plays well. And so I think there is some optimism regarding that.
Let's get into all of it in our opening drive.
It's time for the opening drive.
So before we get into some of the quarterback conversation, because it's been dominant all week in Chicago, and certainly it's understandable. Injury situation as we sit here after Thursday's practice, we know that things could change, but 2 key guys come to mind. I guess 3. Braxton Jones is off of the injured reserve list, and he's now activated, and he can return. Darnell Wright, the right tackle, had been banged up with a toe injury as well as the shoulder situation that he was favoring in Sunday's victory. And then Eddie Jackson in the secondary safety sounds like he may be ramping up for a possible return. How about those 3 guys, Dan?
Yeah, you're hopeful on all 3 of them to be on the field Sunday night in LA. Obviously, Braxton Jones coming off the layoff from the neck issue. He's missed the last 5 games, has the opportunity to be activated anytime here in the next 3 weeks to return to the field. And that would give you, that reliability that you had through the entire first year of Braxton Jones in terms of every snap, down in, down out, knowing what you can expect at that position. You're trying to get more whole on the offensive line as soon as possible. This Eddie Jackson injury has been such a roller coaster since the Bears left Tampa in September, and you're just kind of waiting for a stretch of consistent healthiness to really believe that he's going to be a long-term contributor to this defense. You got to see that with your own eyes, as you know. And then obviously Darnell Wright, that's probably the biggest one of the week, is just seeing how he can gut through the discomfort he's feeling in his shoulder. He has a brace that he's wearing at practice. He is attempting to push himself in every way, shape, and form to get back and stay on the field for Sunday. And he did an admirable job against the Raiders of playing through discomfort, playing through limitation. And you go back through the video and you see how limited the use of that one arm was against the Raiders and how effective he was still able to play. It tells you a lot about the grind in that kid and the toughness that he showed.
ESPN's Jeremy Fowler is reporting that Justin Fields is targeting the Saints game as a possible return. I don't know what information he's using. What side? Is it the Bears? Is it the quarterback? Is it somebody else? But I think that probably makes sense given the original prognosis and the fact that he's not been placed on injured reserve. I think that there's a lot that goes into what happens if that is indeed the case. But is that consistent, at least, with the timetable that you're familiar with, and if the Bears addressed anything regarding Justin Fields?
Well, look, they've said all along that things are progressing in the direction they want them to progress. It's all about, again, grip strength in the right thumb. It's all about how can you be functional with whatever limitations you might be feeling in your throwing hand. And the Bears will continue to kind of monitor that with their own doctors, with their in-house training staff, and with Justin's own feedback to see how he's doing, with things as basic as taking a snap, things as basic as throwing a football, and they'll evaluate as they go. They were able to kind of dodge the bullet of this being a longer term injury. If Justin is able to get back next week for the Saints, which obviously for his own purposes would be very, 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 beneficial and valuable, it would be good news for this football team because you want to be able to have decisions.
My guess is they won't decide who starts at quarterback against the Saints by arm wrestling. But if they would, I think Tyson Bagent might get the advantage just based on his heredity.
Maybe they should do thumb wrestling.
That would also give him an advantage if you have a dislocated thumb. That would re-injure Justin Fields. And maybe that's what they'll want by Monday morning. Who knows, depending on what happens Sunday night. So that gets us to the quarterback. Obviously, it's the biggest topic of the week. It's going to be a national story that if Sunday Night Football is the biggest platform there is, then I think then you can just imagine how many people are going to be introduced to the tale of Tyson Bagent on Sunday night. How would you say he's handled the attention this week? Obviously, there was a connection between last week, Wednesday's podium appearance, and his poise on the field. How has he handled the success when he appeared to reporters on this Wednesday?
No, look, I think that there's probably a lot new that's coming at Tyson Bagent of even just the demands that go with the role of being the starter of having to go do those press conferences weekly with the local media, having to go do production meetings late in the week and manage your schedule accordingly just to account for a few more things that are heaped on your plate. I mean, like Tyson Bagent is pretty consistent in terms of his steadiness, in terms of his composure, in terms of his confidence. He used the phrase again on Wednesday afternoon, nerved up, to describe how he is in most game weeks, nerved up until he gets his mind completely wrapped around a game plan. He's still going through that process now with the hope of boarding a plane Saturday to California with firm grasp of what he's being asked to do. As you've heard throughout the week, a lot of people want Tyson Bagent to throw the ball down the field more. They want to see if his arm strength is limited. They want to see if the Bears can have a vertical passing game, or if the game plan and the ball distribution that was used against the Raiders is all he's capable of. I would call us probably interested onlookers and seeing what it looks like against the Chargers on Sunday. And so I think everyone in a very lively debate in Chicago will benefit from a second game to be able to test what's real in this undrafted rookie out of Division II Shepherd and what might be just kind of flimsy in terms of his skills and ability to play winning football.
You know, I love the story and proud member of the agency, as I have to keep reminding people who call me a Justin Fields apologist. So I asked this question with all of the respect in the world for the small town angle, because I myself, as you know, am from a very small town and led a semi-sheltered existence up until I left for college. I didn't fly in an airplane until I was 17 years old. It was something that you're not exposed to a lot when you're from small communities like that. In some cases, my case, northwestern Indiana. Has Tyson Bagent been to California?
Honestly, it's funny you bring that up, because as we were getting toward the end of his media session on Wednesday, it was a question that popped into my head, because he talks a lot about how little he's left home in West Virginia and how that was part of the reason he stayed at Shepherd. And he's a very family oriented kid who hasn't really been a world traveler. So my guess would be no. It's just an educated guess. I don't have firm knowledge. I'm sure we'll learn more about that in the days to come. But this is something. It's eye opening. All of this. I remember talking to Bagent at the end of training camp, and just in terms of him basically being holed up in a hotel here locally, in Vernon Hills / Lake Forest, as the Bears were going through training camp, and now kind of having to navigate that world of, okay, now I've got to find my first place to live away from West Virginia, and I don't know where he eventually settled, but again, it's a reminder that of something we all often overlook. It's the fact that this is a 23-year-old kid kind of making his way in the world for the first time and dealing with a lot of new, in terms of life experiences, and then obviously engaging in this NFL experience, which is surreal.
And for the record, I mean, football stuff aside, this has been so much fun to watch him handle. I've really enjoyed and appreciated the fact that he's handled it with as much confidence and humility as he
Yeah.
has. And I got a kick out of Wednesday, when he was saying, I was talking to some dude from Huntington who told me that, I was the first West Virginia born quarterback to start an NFL game. That was since 1974. Joe Gilliam did it with the Steelers, but that's a very long time and a really cool distinction for somebody in his position to be able to achieve. And it's like he's not letting it paralyze him or make too much out of it, but he certainly is savoring all of this attention, almost like in real time, understanding that it could be possibly fleeting.
Well, yeah, but I don't even think he thinks of it as fleeting. I think that he understands that he has had opportunities that have come to his doorstep because he has, um, you know, put in the work to attract them, you know, and
Yeah.
I think he's
Right.
a big believer. One of the answers he gave on Wednesday, which was notable in terms of his connection with Luke Getzey, is that he truly admires people who dive headfirst into their work and have a passion for what they do, and try to make sure that they make the most of it. And he's certainly a kid that has done that. And so, like, again, it's an alluring story. I hate that we live in a world now, and it's happened locally this week, where because social media is social media, there's backlash to everything. Even the good stories get overblown to a point where then people on the other side feel the need to kind of push back on them unnecessarily. And this is one of those instances where this week, the people that have resisted the Tyson Bagent story, or the people that have pushed back on it, like, they make no sense to me, because this is one of the cooler sports stories there is, and it should be like one of those waves that you ride until it's done making its way entirely up the beach, and then you just go, man, what a ride that was.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that is the unfortunate reality of today's world, maybe influenced by social media. People are
Maybe 100%
hundred
influenced by social
percent,
media.
100%, and people tend to be typically worried about their own narrative or their own projections being fulfilled than what's actually happening, and enjoying that for what it is. All right, from the football point of view, Dan, I think that you look at the opportunity ahead on Sunday, and the Chargers secondary and the Chargers defense being the worst pass defense in the NFL is an invitation. They have given up 20 plays of 25 or more yards. They have given up 7 plays of 45 or more yards. Maybe that's getting ahead of ourselves because of the numbers game. But those things, those statistics say, even with 2 elite pass rushers in Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, who is a little bit banged up, there could be a possibility or an opportunity for Tyson Bagent to show off that cannon and to prove that he does have a big arm, because DJ Moore is likely to get a step or a step and a half, and the Bears can't pass up those opportunities if they present themselves.
I want to read a quote here, because I thought it was one of the better things that Tyson Bagent said this week, and I'll seek it out and search it here as we're talking. But, like, there is an opportunity here. The Chargers are worst in the league in terms of pass defense overall. You just referenced the chunk plays that they've given up. There is opportunity here, and so much of this opportunity is about how do you scheme up things that attack an opponent's weaknesses with things that you're good at. And so, like, anybody that is looking to see whether Tyson Bagent has this in his game is going to be rewarded, I think, because there's going to be chances for them to dial things up. There's going to be chances for him to use his field vision, for him to use his decision making, for him to use his savvy to take some shots. And what he does with those shots is going to go a long way towards figuring out what kind of offense this can be with this kid at the steering wheel. And so, look, like, it's a fun opportunity. I think you're probably looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it, and I think that the world is trying to decipher whether that horizontal, heavy check down, short completion game that they played against the Raiders is something that is going to be part of the norm with Tyson Bagent as a quarterback, or if it was kind of opponent specific, defense specific, and situation specific.
I do think they need to start that way. I do think they need to come out, and if for no other reason, to create that sort of comfort zone again. I think they need to come out relatively safe and conservative. If they want to take the ball, if they win the coin toss, fine, go ahead, have a symbol of aggressiveness. But to me, if you come out against the Chargers, I don't think you're initially trying to prove a point on the first drive. Say, okay, I'm going to throw it deep and I'm going to stretch you out. I think you come out and you establish Deontay Foreman. You run the ball behind your big right offensive line. If Darnell Wright is there, your 2.5 men right side, and you do what worked the last time you won, the most recent time out, and then get settled in. Maybe even get a lead if you do, and then you feel a little bit more comfortable. I think it's going to be gradual in terms of the progression. Get him comfortable, and maybe Luke Getzey gets into a rhythm again, which it was in a really good one, and then you can take your shots.
So two things to that point, and the first one is I'll just read you the quote from Tyson Bagent, because he was pressed by Mark Potash on how you look at a Chargers defense that has been vulnerable to passing plays down the field. but also got a rookie quarterback in Aiden O'Connell on the ground 7 times, including 6 times by Khalil Mack, and how you balance that, how delicate it is to try to take advantage of what should be there for you, but not put yourself in harm's way seeking that out. And Tyson said, that's why the NFL is so hard. You've got to know when to eat a play. You've got to know when to take advantage of the play. You've got to know when to escape, and you've got to know when to throw it away or take a sack. Once again, we're not trying to be careful with anything we're doing. We just want to play our game as effective and as in sync as we possibly can. I thought that was an awesome mindset to take into this game, which with those dynamics at play.
It's impossible not to compare answers and press conferences and things like that, but Justin Fields, that was like an answer that you would love for him to have provided at some point in time. I don't know that he's always been that clear about, sometimes you have to eat it, sometimes all the things that he said. And I think in a nutshell, that sums up what makes people excited about Tyson Bagent. We talk about the Chargers sacking Aiden O'Connell as much as they did. Khalil Mack had 6. I know Aiden O'Connell was in a college program where they got rid of the ball fairly quickly, but I don't think he gets rid of the ball as quickly as Tyson Bagent does, and just on a small sample size, or has that awareness to do that. I think that what he said in that answering that question kind of makes you feel better about whatever game plan Luke Getsy arrives upon, because he's going to have the presence of mind to know what it takes in every given snap.
I keep going back to that 88-yard touchdown drive that the Bears had to open the second half against the Raiders, and the efficiency of that and the productivity of it and the way that it basically ended the game in the third quarter. It gave the Bears a 21-3 lead, and they got in the end zone with a whole bunch of really good decisions and positive plays. And so those who kind of push back and, Tyson Bagent only threw for 166 yards. Well, the Bears only had really that possession in the second half. That was the one meaningful possession they had after halftime. And then they had such control of the game that their only 2 remaining possessions were essentially a couple handoffs to run time off the clock and victory formation at the end of the game to seal it. And so situationally, your quarterback put you in a position advantageously to win a football game. And that is a skill. And so I think like the conversation locally has gotten kind of wild this week, in my opinion, because everyone sort of, I'm sure it's because of the intoxicating rush that Fields provided last year with those highlight reel plays. People have forgotten what some of the greatest strengths of elite quarterbacks in the NFL are. And it's field vision. It's that internal clock. It's game management. It's situational awareness. It's accuracy. It's efficient. It's decision making. It's rhythm. It's pocket poise. It's ability to move around the pocket. It's that competitive charisma that Bagent shows. And so, like, this idea that he's lacking in all of these fundamental quarterback skills that you need to exceed at a high level in this league is crazy to me. No, he's not going to run as fast as Justin Fields. No, he's not going to have as strong of an arm. But all those things I just mentioned are things that are incredibly valuable to playing the hardest position in sports at a successful level. And I just don't know why that hasn't been sort of at the center of the conversation more this week.
I think in Chicago, it's because of the fear of the obvious comparison and contrast with Justin Fields, maybe, because all the things that you said and pointing out how fundamentally sound Tyson Bagent is, to many people, that's perceived as a knock on Justin Fields, which is why I go back to our conversation on Monday, I think it was, the disclaimer. Everything you say about Tyson Bagent is not necessarily related to any evaluation of Justin Fields. And it takes discipline to remember that. But what you just described is something that will sound like a knock on Justin Fields, but it isn't really. All those traits that you ticked off there. Tyson Bagent, when you watch him, and I don't, obviously we haven't seen him a lot as an NFL quarterback, but I talked to Norv Turner, was in the studio on the Mully and Haugh show earlier this week, longtime NFL coach, quarterback, expert and guru. He said, watch Tyson Bagent play. He goes, and I went back and I watched the second half. He goes, watch the way that he keeps his eyes up the field when he's trying to buy himself some time. Watch the way he just instinctively, that's not something he's training himself. It's just something that instinctively happens. He goes, other young quarterbacks don't do that. Guys who haven't had 7,000 snaps at the position or throws don't do that. And that Nor's point was, Tyson Bagent does that so naturally and keeps his eyes up the field that he's always waiting for something to open up, that tells him a lot of other things that can be assumed about his fundamentals, because that can be hard to train or get somebody ingrained into a quarterback. And is a really interesting point. It's not necessarily a knock on Justin Fields, but when you do compare the two, Justin Fields holds on to the ball too long, and he drops his eyes, and then bad things happen. Tyson Bagent, it doesn't happen as often yet because that's the way he has been trained, and he's fundamentally probably ahead of many quarterbacks who have better athleticism than he does.
This is just off the top of my head, but I'll feel pretty convicted in saying this. The five quarterbacks that have played at the highest level in the 21st century are probably Brady, Mahomes, Manning, Brees, Rodgers. Right, those probably jump to your brain as the MVPs and Super Bowl trophies and everything else that come with it. And you look at some of the things that those guys did to win football games, to overcome whatever limitations they may have had, and to use their strengths advantageously to take over games and control games. Like, it's just not as hard as we're going to make it. Now, look, like, there's no reason I should be checking off the names of those quarterbacks in a conversation about an undrafted rookie out of Shepherd that has made one start. Do not at me and say that I'm making those comparisons. I'm just saying, like, understand what the position in this league requires. Understand what the demands of this position are. Understand how the greats figure out how to do those things consistently. And consistency is the biggest thing. If we're going to demand that out of Justin Fields and say that one of the biggest reasons that he's been limited in his 2+ seasons as the Bears starter is because he hasn't been able to put things together consistently, then we're certainly not going to overreact or jump to conclusions after one freaking start from a kid out of Shepherd University. And so let's see what happens Sunday against the Chargers. It's all we can do is accumulate more evidence, judge it for what it is, and be either appropriately critical or appropriately praiseworthy.
That's at Dan Wiederer, or
I before E, yeah.
At Take the North Pod. Either way, if you want to insult him, do it that way. All right, let's move on to our numbers, game, and predictions. Great numbers package in this Chicago Tribune, chicagotribune.com. Dan, I enjoyed all of them. What do you want to touch on? I have one that I would like to incorporate. It's yours, but I'll introduce it.
All right. Well, I'm going to start with this one because it's the only way to get it out of the way quickly, and it's 17-16, and that is the score of the last time that the Chargers and the Bears played. It is a game fully embedded in my brain from week 8 of the 2019 season, because it was basically the Titanic hitting the iceberg. It was the loss that kind of confirmed that the Bears' 100th season ship was headed to the bottom of the ocean. You remember what happened at the end of that game. Yes, there were a couple of fourth quarter Mitch Trubisky turnovers. Yes, there was a Mitch Trubisky 58-yard touchdown pass to Taylor Gabriel that was incomplete because it was thrown too long. But on the final sequence of the game, the Chicago Bears marched into scoring territory and were in range for a game-winning field goal. And with 43 seconds left, Matt Nagy chose not to run another running play, not to run another passing play, not to move the ball toward the middle of the field for his kicker, and he took a kneel down. And he set Eddie Pinheiro up for a 41-yard field goal that the kicker, with a strong right-to-left wind, pulled a little bit to the left of the upright in the north end zone at Soldier Field, and the Bears lost. And it opened up a week of what the hell was that questioning of the head coach, of the kicker, of everybody involved. And it was one of those moments that in Chicago Bears history will forever be remembered, because again, you remember what the expectations for that season were, and that was such a catastrophic loss. It was the second of 4 in a row that basically torpedoed the season. You remember it well, don't you?
I do remember it well. I think that was a post game where Matt Nagy got a little testy answering
with
questions.
You,
yeah, with me about
and me as well.
Yeah, I think that was like, what are you doing? What were you thinking? Where are you going to work next year? But that was, though, he lasted a little bit longer than that. That's something else. 17-16. All right, I didn't realize it was in 2019. I thought it was more earlier than that, but it had to be 2019 because that was Nagy, and that was the season where everything went wrong that could go wrong. That's a good one. Okay, I'm going to introduce one. I'm going to steal it from your package because I couldn't believe this. I actually double-checked you just to make sure that
good,
in case I needed to issue a correction via your editors there. 6. That's how many straight losses the Bears have had on Sunday Night Football. 6 straight losses on Sunday Night Football. I mean, they must hate Carrie Underwood. This is awful. 6 straight losses, all by double digits. Average score 32-15. The last one was a glorious memory. It was the season that everything went right up until the end. 2018, 15-6 defeat of the Rams in December. Vic Fangio outsmarted Sean McVay, and the Bears defense prevailed. But it's been that long, very long 6-loss streak that the Bears have endured on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, 5 years since they won on Sunday night. And 3 of those 6 losses on Sunday Night Football were to the Packers. 2 of them were in LA, both to the Rams, one at the Coliseum, one at SoFi Stadium. And so there's a lot of parallels there. Thank you for double checking me. I wish you would do that every week. 6, I'm going to give you another number, 6. It's the sacks total by Khalil Mack in week 4 in the Chargers win over the Raiders. It was a breakthrough performance by a guy we're all familiar with here in Chicago, a guy who has shown the ability to take over games. But Khalil Mack only has 9 sacks in his other 22 games as a Charger. If you recall, and this was in my numbers package today, the Bears traded away Khalil Mack before the 2022 season for a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick. And then they traded that 2023 sixth-round pick right back to the Chargers for 2 2022 seventh-round picks. And so the net haul from the Khalil Mack trade was that they got Jaquan Brisker, Elijah Hicks, and Trenton Gill.
Those are the 3 they got? Brisker,
Yep. Hicks, and Gill.
Hicks, and Gill. That's not bad. That's better than I thought in terms of the overall haul. I still don't. I mean, I understand why they got rid of them because of the cap hit and everything, but
yeah, and where they were in their stage of rebuild.
That's not a bad deal for Ryan Poles. Wouldn't you say it's probably a thumbs up?
So far, especially with the way Hicks has come through in a reserve role this year and been pretty reliable there.
I'm counting a punter as a plus. I guess that's good. Okay, what's the next one?
2 more for you. 285.1. That is the average passing yards per game for Justin Herbert, who's in his 4th season here and is absolutely rewriting Chargers records all over the place and putting himself all over the NFL record books as well. You turn to the Chargers game notes, and there's like 6 pages of statistical numbers that you could pull on Justin Herbert that make your jaw drop, particularly coming from Chicago, where we don't have any quarterback numbers to hang on. He is the second all-time in average passing yards per game with at least 1,000 passing attempts. Patrick Mahomes is the first. Bears quarterbacks since Herbert entered the league have combined to average 203.6 passing yards per game, so that's almost 82 yards per game less. Herbert also has 1,458 career completions, the most ever by any NFL quarterback in his first 4 seasons. Oh, by the way, he has 11 games to go in his 4th season to add on to that record.
He's a modern-day Dan Fouts. He has a lot of great numbers. He's got a rocket right arm. I love Justin Herbert. Fact is, though, he hasn't won much.
Yeah, well, we'll see. He's got 14 game-winning drives in 55 games. Okay, we're constantly demanding game-winning drives from our quarterback in Chicago. The guy's got 14 of them. So let's give him some credit before we.
I'll give him credit. I'm not. I'd still start him. I'd still take him. I'm just saying. You're comparing him to Bears quarterbacks. I'm comparing him to Patrick Mahomes.
Okay, no problem. My last number for you today is 3. It's the number of touchdowns scored by D'Onta Foreman. This is brought up because I had a little brain fart, and I went to the research files to figure out when was the last time a Bears player scored 3 touchdowns in a game. And well, guess what? It was 2 weeks ago. It was when DJ Moore did it against the Commanders in Washington. I go, oh yeah, I forgot about that so soon. But so that gave me an entry point into looking up the players that have had at least 3 touchdowns in a game over the last 10 seasons. It's Taylor Gabriel, it's Jordan Howard, it's Brandon Marshall twice, it's Matt Forte twice, and it's Greg Olsen. And then they were joined by DJ Moore and D'Onta Foreman. The last time the Bears had 2 different players score 3 touchdowns in a game in the same season, Curtis Conway, Rashaan Salam, 1995.
Wow, that's going way back. I also don't remember Greg Olsen scoring 3 touchdowns. You sure about that? I'm sure you're sure about that. Do you remember Greg Olsen scoring 3 touchdowns for the Bears?
I don't, but it came up in the Stat Finder search that we did. So
I'm sure that he did. He was the guy they never should have traded. Mike Martz was impressed. All right, that's good. Let's bring in Adam Sudzinski to make our predictions quickly here. And we'll start with Studs. Hey, Studs. So Bears on a 1-game winning streak. You going to go with them this week, or are you going to go with Justin Herbert?
No. So I'm picking the Chargers this week. They're just the better team. And so just to go to show you, I'm not totally insane. They're just better. And I don't have a lot of faith in the Bears winning back-to-back games. They haven't done that under Matt Eberflus yet. So first time they do, it'll be the first time. I got the score, what did I say on the 670 score website? 23-22. It's just I'm picking odd scores as much as I can. So I think it's going to be close, and I don't know exactly how they get there. Someone's going to get a safety. I'm going to keep predicting a safety until somebody gets a safety because I want it to happen.
How good does Bagent play?
I think Bagent's going to be all right. I think he probably throws a pick. We'll say a touchdown and a pick in maybe 200 yards.
Keep the job.
Keeps no. Justin Fields is going to start once he comes back. I will say though about Bagent, I think that something's been misconstrued about him in the last couple weeks. I think his arm strength is better than what people are saying about
100%, Studs, 100%.
Dude, I went back and watched some of his highlights at Shepherd. He can throw the ball downfield.
Studs, people created a new narrative because Nathan Peterman came in to throw the Hail Mary. That's what everybody's leaning on.
There was that, and he had some of the ducks that he threw against the Vikings. Both times when I think one was tipped or he had a guy in his face, the other time he's trying to avoid a hit. So and so that created this narrative that his arm is like super weak. I watched one highlight where he threw the ball from the 50-yard line midway into the end zone in the air. Like, he can throw the ball downfield. It's not Justin Fields strong, but it's NFL strong. And so I think they are going to be able to throw the ball downfield a little bit. And the reason that things were so within 20 yards last week is because they were like, oh, the Raiders don't really care to do anything about this, so we're going to keep doing it.
Right.
And so anyway, but I do think the Chargers are going to win the game just because they're the better team. They got the better quarterback, and I'm kind of worried about what's going to happen with Darnell Wright. Even if he's healthy, he played with one arm basically last week, and they got two premier pass rushers. So I'm going with the Chargers, but I think it's going to be close.
22. Studs calls for the Bears to lose again. What kind of fan is he? All
2 weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row. What you got, Dan? What do you think?
I'm jumping in the same car Studs is in. I wanted to pick the Bears. I really did. I thought of all road environments that you wanted to go into, it's one where they're only real passionate fan is Marianne Dew, who we're going to see about 1,000 minutes of on Sunday Night Football this weekend, and we'll get a lot of camera time for her. But the Bears, I just don't think are as good as the Chargers. As much as the Chargers are struggling, they just have more established weapons on both sides of the ball. I've got Chargers 27, Bears 23, reluctantly, because I do think the Bears are playing better, and I do think they are positioning themselves to be able to win these types of games more regularly soon.
I have a similar outcome, but you distracted me for a second. So Marianne Dew is her name?
Yeah.
Okay. By Monday morning, I don't know who I'm going to be.
Maybe pronounced Doe or Dew. I'm not sure.
Seeing Marianne Dew or Doe or Travis Kelce, because I'm sick of both of them. This is both overexposed, but anyway, that's a different podcast. All right. 28-24 Chargers. I'd love to see Tyson Bagent go into LA. It's a perfect backdrop for a Hollywood story. I just think he could play well. They could still lose. Tough challenge for the defense. I am a big Justin Herbert fan. They've got some weapons with Keenan Allen. They've got Eckler if he's healthy. They've got a lot of reasons to move the football against that Bears defense. So I think the Bears will be competitive. I hope it's competitive and not one of these double-digit blowouts on Sunday night. But I think it'll be 28-24 Chargers.
It's pretty similar.
All right, let's finish things up with our 2-minute drill.
The 2-minute drill. The 2-minute drill.
All right, so when you look at the Chargers and Khalil Mack, obviously, is this the first time he's played against the Bears in a Chargers uniform? And
Correct.
Do you think that he should be feeling any sense of motivation because the team that traded him away? He was pretty happy in Chicago.
Yeah, look, like Khalil's time here was complicated because we all know what he meant to the 2018 Bears. I still go back and I wrote a real long deep dive on the eve of the playoff game against the Eagles about what that entire 4-month Khalil Mack experience was. It was one of my favorite stories I've written during my 10 plus years at the Tribune because it was such a jolt. I mean, you remember the feeling that dude put in this city in the first week he got here and how it just kept going throughout the entire season to the point that the Bears went into the playoffs truly believing that they were Super Bowl hopefuls. And that was like one man's impact on raising everything within the building. It was awesome to see, but obviously the durability wasn't there for the entire time that he was in Chicago. The production wasn't there for the entire time he was here in Chicago. COVID came around, and there was a season full of games without fans in the stands, and so it felt like Khalil's time here ended with a fizzle. I think there's a great appreciation from anybody who played with him, who saw about the way he went about his business and the way he attacked his craft. we'll see how he handles Sunday night. But certainly that dude, again, for one season here was as electric as any football player that I've covered in my time in the league.
No doubt about it. He was definitely one of the better trades, and he made that season really special. And sorry to see him go. And it's not surprising he's still producing at a high level. I do wonder what his legacy will be. I do wonder how many sacks he'll end up with if he stays healthy and continues to accumulate them. You do wonder if Canton is part of the conversation moving forward, but I have to take a closer look at that at the end of the day. When you look at what Luke Getsy had to say, talking about Tyson Bagent's first start, anything stand out?
I thought Luke was a little more reserved and subdued than we're used to seeing him up there. Like, I think he wasn't surprised by the poise that Bagent showed. I think he does believe that the quarterback has an ability to handle a lot, which gives you as a play caller and as an offensive overseer freedom to mix in a lot. And then it's all about just kind of, again, managing the game and the situation, which they have ultimate faith that he can do. Look, like this is going to be interesting. The debate is going to be more lively on Monday, regardless of what happens on Sunday night. And so it's going to be fun to have another game to assess.
So Darnell Wright limited in Thursday's practice. Braxton Jones, the same thing. Just to reiterate, do you think they both will start left tackle, right tackle, the bookends? Will they be back together on Sunday night?
As long as there's no setbacks, I would see that being the case. And look, like the Bears have had to reshuffle on the fly before. I will say that there is some intrigue if needed. Obviously, Larry Borum would go back in your swing tackle role there. But if anything happened and you had to get deeper down the depth chart, Ja'Tari Carter has been getting some reps at the tackle position in practice. He has that versatility to be a swing tackle / guard for you, or right tackle / guard for you, depending on what you need.
And the last thing is, I miss the newspaper business so much every single day that I like to have all these ideas and assignments. So next deep dive, I want you to compare and contrast the tattoos on Tyson Bagent's body, torso, and DJ Moore's, because if it brought them together and they become something special as a tandem for the Bears and maybe turn this season around, my friend, it will be because they bonded over tattoos, and you're just the guy to get to the bottom of that story.
And where did they bond over tattoos?
In the sauna.
In the sauna. We talked last week about the bond that Robert Tonyan formed with Tyson Bagent in the sauna during training camp, and now we realize that DJ Moore formed a bond in the same place. So maybe Tyson has found a natural connection place for his dudes in the locker room. It's there in that sauna during training camp. So maybe that's the real story. Maybe it's not the tattoos. Maybe it's what goes on in the sauna with the Bears players.
We know the kid can handle the pressure. We do know that. So, all right, that's a good idea. Anything else before we get out of here?
Look, like, again, I just think that this is a pivot point in the season where if you want to have some feel good, if you want to have some relevance, if you want to have a belief that you're climbing that staircase, this is a great opportunity to go win a game as a heavy road underdog and show people that, okay, maybe all the laughing we did at this franchise through the first 4 weeks was overdone, and maybe they are truly moving in a good direction. So in that regard, I'm looking forward to getting out to California. I'm also looking to getting out there because the forecast is a whole lot better than it promises to be here in Chicago over the next several days. So it'll be good to get that
always
that
good
sunshine.
to go to LA. Bookkeeping notice for people out there in our audience: on Sunday night, right after the game, Studs and I will be on with a post-game reaction while Dan is making deadline. So we will still have a Take the North pod post-game version, and we'll react to whatever happens. You can get us on your free Odyssey app. You can get us. You can watch us on the YouTube station from 670 The Score, and you can just download, listen, and subscribe. Give us some feedback.
I am also doubtful for Monday as I travel back from California, but because I was able to do a podcast while driving down the Kennedy Expressway, maybe I should try one from the skies up in American Airlines on Monday, and maybe we just annoy the entire back of the plane.
That would be great.
Do our podcast.
The only thing that would make that better is if you were sitting next to Brad Biggs and doing a podcast while Biggs is trying to take a nap. That would be good theater.
We never fly together, so that will not be possible.
Because you guys can't, right? It's like
the president and the vice president.
Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
It's too valuable to the Bears beat. I understand that. I think Biggs is the one who told me that. So that's good to know. All right. For Dan Wiederer, Adam Studzinski, I'm David Haugh. Thank you for listening to the Take the North podcast. We'll talk to you on Sunday night.
Great talk. See you out there.